B. I got to have a fire pit not out of necessity to hang out with like friends, meaning like it wasn't like we needed to be warm by the fire to hang out. Great. I'm gonna get started. So I'm gonna play a piece before we bring on our special guest, called Not So Simple, something that I wrote, I guess technically arranged, a couple years ago. I was asked by the Lotus Chamber Music Ensemble in New York to they commissioned me to write this solo cello piece, and a couple other ensemble pieces, and it was super fun getting to do that. It was my first ever someone paying me to write music. Made me really feel like a proper composer. But this, still, so this is a kind of like my take on the Shaker song Simple Gifts, and it gets weird, so hope you enjoy it. Man, I'm ready for this pandemic to end so that I can do that more often in front of humans because I'm not used to it. Okay, I'm gonna put my headphones on. Hard part's over for me. Now I just get to have fun. I'm so excited. This is a very special guest who's coming on. Someone who I only technically talked to for the first time just a few minutes ago. We've communicated a lot over Instagram and social media, and I've been following him and his music for years now, and just being like, damn, I want to do that. That's really cool. So we have, I just want to make sure I introduce him in the best way possible. His name is Okorie Johnson. He goes by OkCello, the greatest name. And he's an Atlanta-based cellist who integrates looping, improvisation, and storytelling into his performances, all culminating in original compositions that kind of combine classical, jazz, EDM, reggae, and funk. His inspiration is the exploration of the African diasporic melodies and narratives, and their intersection with people's perceptions and assumptions about the classical and European nature of the cello. I've watched a lot of videos of him playing and talking this week, and I'm just ready to dig in regarding this topic. I just think it's so great. So we're gonna invite him on so that I can just stop talking about him. He can talk about himself because he's gonna do a great job at that. There he is.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. I am so.
How you doing?
I am good. I'm shaken because I don't play a lot of like stuff past like third position for people anymore.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. You were playing. You were great. You're up there, and
it's like
that thumb position sounded sweet and gorgeous.
Thanks, man.
That's nice.
Thanks. Well, like when people like you know, and we're gonna get into this topic about like, because I've heard you, like I just said, I've heard you talk about it, but like I always have like my master's degree classical teacher in my mind, like, this is not hard enough for you to perform on a recital, and I'm just like, it's not about that, man.
It's not about. It's
not
not
about
that.
How hard it is. So like,
it doesn't. Yeah.
Well,
cool. Well, that was really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Kaitlyn. How do you say your last name?
Raitz.
Raitz.
Like
okay,
R-A-T-E-S. Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. Yes. Cool. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to being here.
Oh man, this is a dream come true. I'm having the best time.
Yay.
Yes. Should we just jump into you playing something quick, and then we're gonna like really we can just get into it,
and then we'll talk after that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play a piece that I pretty much play to start any show or thing that I do. It's called Fire. A lot of my music is intended to be narrative in some way, or at least, you know, narrative light. And this particular piece is about a small flame that grows into a towering inferno. I use it for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes if I'm doing like a conference, it's a metaphor for our minds being on fire, or sometimes it's just about the sheer kind of fire of creativity. But more than anything, it's just a really good song for me to like relax and to get started and to, you know, figure out what my body is doing, what my cello is doing before I get too far into a set. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
man,
here we go. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm a looper. I don't know how much juice is in my camera right now, but I use a looping pedal and a volume pedal. So I'm going to be playing with recorded live cello, and then that's kind of what's going on there. So yeah, here we go. Fire.
you relaxed me.
Ah, cool.
Great. Oh, man.
Yeah, you feel like
I'm ready.
Cool. You're ready? You're ready? That's good. That's good.
I need
that was fun. You know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I need like something that you know reliably will like put you in the zone, make you like loosen up, like right at the beginning of the set. That's such a great idea.
Yeah. And it's really just like a check-in, you know what I mean? Because it lets me know like what's the temperature, how's the cello responding, how's my improvisation. So really only about 80% of my songs, well, all of my songs for the most part contain some level of improvisation, and each individual song varies in terms of how much improvisation is in it. But I would say that really usually only about 75 to 80% of my songs are composed, and then the remaining quarter is pretty much improvised. I'm not like a jazz improviser. I'm not like really trained in improvising at all. So it's very much how I feel at the time. And if my brain is thinking quickly and responding and I'm feeling good, then okay, I can take some risks improvisationally. And if my brain is a little sluggish and the brain isn't talking to the hand and I can't quite hear, then I try and stay in the pocket when it comes to improvising. So.
Well,
so that's what's happening with that song.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I have seen you do these Instagram lives where you kind of do these meditative improvisations, and I have tuned in more than once and just been like, yes. Like I wanted to talk to you about that kind of like what's your cello life? Like where did you come from? Where did you go?
Yeah. It's a long conversation, the full cello life. I'll back up and kind of talk about the improvisation part.
Yeah.
The first time I guess I really improvised publicly was at my wedding back in 2000. So my wife and I have been married for 21 years this year. And we got married here in Atlanta in 2000 in a church on the AUC, which is the campus that has Morehouse and Spelman and Clark. I'm Catholic, was raised Catholic. We had a Catholic wedding. And I wanted to do something a little bit different. At that time, I was a starving artist. We were living in Atlanta, and I was playing in bands. I was playing with somewhat notable. She wasn't notable yet, but I was playing with a soul act, and I was playing with a rock act, and I was playing with this like suburban acoustic grunge. I don't know what we were, but what was interesting about it is that like I was really enjoying being the only cello in the room to some degree and playing by ear. And so I got a chance really to make a lot of things up. And at our wedding, I performed a couple songs that I wrote. One song I might perform tonight. But what I really wanted to do was I wanted the priest to say, please close your eyes and bow your heads in prayer. And then people would stand and they would do that. And then people would expect him to speak. But instead, what I wanted to do was I wanted to play the prayer.
Yes.
So I played the prayer. And I saw a couple of heads like come up like and look around like, what's going on there? But it was a really moving moment. And I thought it was maybe my purest expression of intention towards my wife and towards our marriage and towards our families. I don't know, it was just real magical. So that was a thing that I did then. It wasn't necessarily a ritual or a practice at that point. It was just a thing that I did. And then I would jump many years forward. We're married several years. We have 2 kids. I'm an English teacher. By the way, I didn't go to music school. I majored in English, and I just played in bands for the most part as an adult. And that's kind of where I got my education for what it is I do. But what was interesting is that I left the classroom, and I wasn't really even playing that much cello at the time. I was going to produce a film. I'm kind of all over the place. And things were actually not going so well for the film. They started out going really well, but then I was writing. I had written this beautiful, I thought, coming of age rom-com, right? And they're like, "Oh, that's so sweet. Nobody's gonna watch it. No cars blow up. There are no zombies. There are no vampires. Where's the infidelity? Come on, please write a real movie and make somebody some money." I was really sad about that. Yeah.
I'll watch it. Make it.
You'd watch it? I mean, we just needed another 3 million of us, right? Yeah. That would have been like, yeah, let's go watch that. But I was going out and people were giving me good feedback, which was nice, but it was also really depressing because it's like, well, don't tell me you like me and you like my writing and you think I'm a smart guy. You know, put some money behind my film. So I would come home and just be wrecked. I didn't know what else to do other than to kind of sit at my cello and I would improvise. Largely because I didn't have any music to play that I think helped express what I was feeling or what I wanted to feel. So I would just sit and improvise and play, and I would always emerge from that just better, feeling better. So it started to become a thing. And sometime around the time when I was turning 40, my improvisation intersected with my looping. The film thing was not going well. As a matter of fact, my wife was amazingly supportive on near my 40th birthday. Was like, you know, you don't really seem to have this thing worked out. So why don't you go back to teaching and, you know, take another stab at it when you get it? And, you know, it was absolutely reasonable for her to say that, but it was like crushing. It felt like massive failure and defeat. And so my choices were go back to the classroom or write a zombie film. And neither were particularly exciting for me. And I woke up on the morning of my 40th birthday and I was experimenting with a looper. I hadn't written any songs on it yet. But I was really sad and depressed, and I thought that this was the year I was going to start interviewing. And what came out of me was this bass line. And I sat there in our living room. Nobody was home. It was during the day, and I started bawling. Like I started just full on crying because I felt like that simple bass line was more eloquent than the screenplay I'd been working on, and it really expressed how I was feeling. And then I sat there, and then I was like, well, I got to say something to it. So I started improvising, and then so I would do things like this. Anyway, I did that for like 15 minutes, and I was then like bawling, like heaving, like shoulders like going up, and all of a sudden I felt like I had stumbled onto something. I stumbled onto like the minimal composition of a looper, or the minimally composed output of a looper, and the kind of emotive power of improvisation and expression. And I spent the next week and a half kind of working with this bass line, and I came up with a head that was pretty much my first song, and it goes a little something like this. I'll just play the head, I won't play the whole song. And then the next bit of the song is I improvise. And I improvise pretty much for like a good 2-3 minutes. And then I come back to that head and I end the song pretty much the same way. And it was like the cementing of everything that I still do. So there was an element of storytelling because the song ended up ended up becoming 40, and I would tell this story every time I performed the song 40. There was, some composing, and looping, and then there was improvising, and then for me personally, I'm not so sure that the audience is aware of this. There's really this challenge to be honest and raw and emotional and not wrapped up in whether it's perfect or not, but just whether it's honest. And so that was the first song. And then
Wow.
it gave birth to like 5 or 6 songs. And then those 5 or 6 songs turned into a concert in 2015. And I decided to do an entire concert series, one concert every month for 2015. And it turned into a thing. So that's kind of the story of not only the improvisation part, which, started on my wedding day, but continues in my music and also in just the improvisations that you see online. And also the story of how it collided with the looping.
I mean, that's so beautiful. Like at such a difficult moment in your life, they grew this wonderful thing that you do now, and right?
It's
Yeah.
it's pretty much the light from that darkness.
Yeah. Oh man. Whew. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's beautiful. I mean, it was just like reminded, like if I could read just like this quote in your
Hmm.
bio that just really struck me. So this is everyone. This is from Oak. Uh, his bio. It says, after years of putting my cello down and picking it back up, after years of deciding that cello wasn't financially practical, after years of thinking that my other voices were my native ones, I realized that the cello was the oldest, most central, and most sacred part of me. I resolved never ever to deny it again. And I was just like, yes, like I feel like that's what I'm figuring out right now. I don't know, like I just really wanted to talk to you because like I just wanted to talk to you and like figure out my life because I just think it's just so cool.
Thank you. What's your
Yeah.
cello story, Kaitlyn?
Oh, my cello story. I did go to cello school and
Hmm.
classical the whole way. And when I was in college, um, I like those classical festivals that cost like $5,000 like to go over the
Mm.
summer and go to like music camp. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
just like wasn't in the cards for me. But my teacher was like, "Hey, there's this fiddle camp. It's $500 and it's 1 week." And I was like, "That's cool. Let's do it. It's in New
Yeah.
York." And that's kind of what I grew up in a family that listened to country music and like top 40 pop music. We didn't listen to classical music. So
Hmm.
like I love classical music in a way, but it never really was the reason why I played the cello. Like I just loved
Hmm.
the instrument. And so when I
Hmm.
figured out that I could do other things on it, um I mean, I did my master's in classical music still, but I think it was more just to get the chops that I wanted to
Yeah.
have. And then after that, I kind of just, um, I kind of never like took an audition like in classical world again. And yeah, I just really dove into like folk music. And then those tunes that I've been putting out, those only really started in December, like as like kind of in my darkest moment like of like last fall and like the depths of my like I nothing is inspiring to me. I don't want to play the cello ever anymore.
Wow.
And then I just basically like sat down and I was like, okay, like you just need to play for people. That's like I realized that like such a big part of my inspiration cycle is having people listen to the music and maybe have them clap for me. But it's not even about the
Yeah.
clapping. It's just about sharing something.
It is.
I think.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, sit down and write 1 minute of music and put it on Instagram, and like that will be your concert. And it ended up becoming like a 3.5 minute tune, so like a proper length song, I guess. And um, yeah, it felt so relieved. Like I was so relieved to have
Hmm.
like made music that I felt really great about, and yeah, and in lieu of having like I don't have like I can't put like a band together right now because of the pandemic. So I just layered myself on top of myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite looping, but like man, I'm just like I have a looper and I tried it it's a hard thing to like get into, but I want to do that as well. That's my
Yeah.
cello
It.
story.
it. It's definitely an adjustment, but It really becomes like the fifth string for me, or like the third hand in so many ways, because the cello. I love hearing you talk about your relationship to the instrument, because I think in so many ways we conflate our relationship to the instrument with our relationship to the canon, and they're not necessarily the same thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not nearly as trained or as schooled as you are in the canon, but I played classically from 6 up and went to music school and orchestras and pissed off my cello teacher because I didn't prepare for conservatory and, I mean, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what was really powerful about kind of that period of time in college was that no one gave me permission to do other things with the cello. And so I didn't think I could. Like, it's really strange. Like, the classical tradition is so much about like permission and imparting like generational knowledge, that there's a lot of stuff that you don't really consider doing because no one's really giving you permission to do it. And the one guy that just broke that for me, I went to a historically Black college, went to Morehouse. So to put some like perspective on this, I lived in a dorm that was on the periphery of campus. It was not a very nice dorm, but you traded like amenities for freedom. So like there wasn't a dorm like director kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he was on his balcony playing Stone Temple Pilots. He was playing Plush. It was weird being a Black guy in DC, listening to rock, even though I listened to everything else, listened to go-go and rap and R&B. But it was also weird that I was like into U2 and a little bit of like grunge stuff. But here he was playing it. So I was just coming back from an orchestra rehearsal for non-majors. And no one really took it all that seriously, but I had my instrument with me and I heard him playing, and I went and I pretty much loitered outside of his door. He was on his balcony. He was playing loud enough that I could hear him through his door. And I just kind of plopped my cello down to the side and I sat outside his door. And he came out for some reason to like get water or something. And he saw me sitting there and he's like, "Can I help you?" I was like, "I was just listening to you play." It's like, "You could have knocked on the door. It's kind of creepy you sitting outside my door." I was like, I'm sorry. I just wanted to listen. I didn't want to interrupt. He's like, "Well, I don't think I'd like you sitting outside my door, but you can come in. And what is that we have with you?" And I was like, "It's a cello." He's like, "Well, why don't you just come in and play with me?" And I was like, "I mean, it's a cello, so
we don't do that.
Maybe I could, but who does that?" He's like, "Man, just take out the cello and play." And so like 2 minutes later, so I just can't. I didn't really come up with that bass line because there's clearly a bass line in it. And to be honest with you, the bass line in the song is way more interesting and melodic than the one I ended up playing. But like 3 hours later, like I had 3 parts to 2 of his songs in Plush, and a week later we had a gig, and a week after that we were a band.
Oh, amazing.
And he basically gave me permission to use the instrument to explore the things that I was interested in. And that's just been the spirit of my relationship with the instrument since 1994.
Wow.
Not really asking for permission and finding an audience. Sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is the asking for like the getting permission or not getting permission thing is so interesting. Like, I lost my train of thought. What you're saying is great, and I'm there with you. Just like no one. I just never like. I would be in like middle school, sitting in orchestra, ready to go, and like I had like figured out like a melody to a Sean Paul song, and I was like, and he was like, "Get busy," so it's just like do 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 da 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 da. It's like 2 notes. Yeah,
right?
It's 2 notes.
Right?
But I was like, I figured this out, and like my teacher was very upset. She's like, "Stop doing this." And it's just like I don't understand the barriers. And if I had like known about all of this earlier, like
right,
what would have my life have been?
I know.
But, I mean, life is cool. It's fine.
Life is cool. Life is good.
But
yeah,
it's so awesome. Do you want to play another thing for us?
Yeah. What should I play? I'll do one that's kind of more like storytelling.
Okay.
and that challenges me and pushes me a little bit. I mean, I'm amongst other cellists, and I think I probably should model what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to push myself, and not everything will be perfect. And in addition to that, I'm also singing, right? So I don't do that well. But there's this song that I really love, and to be honest with you, the cello part is interesting, and my improvising on it is okay. But the concept for me is really exciting. And it's called "These Are the Days," and it's basically, it was written because I love the melody from All in the Family. You know, All in the Family, however, is a show of satire, and we are not actually invited to identify with Archie Bunker, even if we have people in our families that might be Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker was the unreliable narrator that pretty much helped the country to realize how it was changing racially and otherwise, right? And the satire started literally in that first song. It started with "Guys were guys, girls were girls. We need a man like Hoover again," and the lyrics were just so like spot on and over the top for what they didn't want you to identify with. But the melody is so cool. the melody is gorgeous. And to be honest with you, the melody, the song is written in the style of the American Songbook. The American Songbook largely is jazz. And jazz largely is the product of Black people in New York and Chicago and St. Louis and, you know, Mississippi and that kind of thing. And a lot of those American songs were kind of Americanized for the purpose of mass consumption, right? So it's not strange that I would connect with that pentatonic scale, right? It's not strange that I would find it very African in some ways, even though the context is not at all necessarily representative of the people who might have created that genre. And I'm a Black man in 2021, so I can't go around singing "Those Were the Days." Like I literally can't do that. But it doesn't change the fact that I love the melody, and so I decided that I was going to steal it.
Yes.
I was going to steal it and repurpose it and put it in kind of like an Afro-Cuban feel, and create my own context and my own lyrics and melody, and then kind of weave in the whole "Those Were the Days" thing. So this is called "These Are the Days." I'm going to be singing. Feel free to sing at home if you'd like. You don't have to unmute yourself, or I guess it's just the two of us here. So I mean, if you wanted to unmute yourself, you could. There'd be a delay. But usually I tell online audiences, you don't have to unmute yourself. But if you do want to sing at home, please feel free. And this is me like using the microphone and percussion and just trying to break as many rules in one song as I can. So here we go. So yeah, that's me trying to break rules and steal stuff and sing into my mic, and actually it doesn't have quite as much percussion as some of the other songs I do, but you know, that's sort of emblematic, I think, of what it is I do. If I'm looking over here at you, just because I've got a whole setup here, and my TV is over here, I'm like casting over here, my camera's over here, so it looks like I'm just aloof and like looking off, but I'm actually very much looking at you. Even though if I were looking at you, I'd be looking here, but that's what's going on.
And I would be looking up here, so. Okay. Also, you have a wonderful voice. You should do that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I, you know, it's not as controlled as I would like. You know, layering those stacked voices live is always like, oh yeah, you're a little bright there, you're a little flat there, but you know, doing it and I think that the thing that's important for me is this has been a particularly tumultuous few years, politically, socially, and usually when I get a chance to play that in front of an audience, it resonates because there's some literally like national crisis that has just happened, you know. And my message is that, like, you know, I'm not sure what you imagined in your mind when I thought of the perfect opportunity to like change the world, but it's typically not now. But I'm thinking that this is probably the time when the world changes most, when it's in flux and chaos and in pain. And this is our moment, you know. And so many ways, that's kind of what I'm interested in.
Man, I mean, I felt that for sure. I know I'm not in a room with 100 other people listening and singing along with them, but it still came across these computer screens. So
wow, cool, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I just really love everything that I read and saw about you talking about, you know, finding your musical voice and finding the musical voice that's you, and I just think there is no other OkCello, and I barely know you, but I feel like I know you better because I've listened to your music, and I just think
wow,
that's wonderful.
Thanks. Thank you. I
could only aspire to be that clear in my voice on the cello.
Wow, but that song that you posted last week is gorgeous. And I mean, again, I'm just getting to know you, but it felt very singular. You know what I mean? You know, I feel like it's worthwhile us talking about that right now, specifically if there are other cellists watching, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you probably have a lot of cellists that are paying attention, right? Mm-hmm. This instrument, I really feel like, is the instrument of the future. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, I've always thought that, right?
I agree.
But no, the reason why I think that is it's got this very low register that, you know, for better or for worse, we associate with masculine, and it's got this very high register, for better or worse, we associate with feminine. And I bring those two things up to say that at the very least, what it does is it has a very human register, right? It has a very human expression. But it's also big enough to have, like, you know, it's not like a bass drum, but like you got this. You know what I mean? You have all these different percussion sounds, right, that you don't really have on a smaller instrument, or it's not quite as easy to create on a smaller instrument. The difference between the sounds won't be quite as significant, right, because there just isn't as much, right? But on a bigger instrument like a bass, like, you have less real estate in terms of range and frequency, right? So the cello is just like so perfectly suited for exploring contemporary human voice, and doing so in a way that allows you to transcend some identity barriers, some political barriers, some social barriers, right? And so in so many ways, I think this should be the instrument that is breaking rules. Like, this is the instrument where the next like wave of contemporary classical music should be, for the most part, like created for or created on. It's also very it's very anthropomorphic. Is that that's what I'm looking for, right? Where it's very human. It's like, I mean, you're kind of sitting with someone in your lap. You know what I mean? Like, it's got that feel to it, right? And so as a result, I think if we're listening to the instrument rather than to, like, maybe the gatekeepers, the instrument is asking for all kinds of opportunity. the instrument, I think, is asking for, everything from trap to metal. You know what I mean? Like it really it's all really there on the instrument. So I like this idea about finding voice, because I really think that so many human voices are here in the instrument, just naturally and organically. So many human expressions, so many genres are here in the instrument in ways that it might be hard to find on other instruments. So I don't know.
I mean, I agree 100%. Like, it was some famous cellist, like Casals or someone who said, like, violin is like, sorry, violin, like my husband is watching this and he plays the violin, but like, if I think he said, if the violin is who we want to be, the cello is who we are. And like, there's like in terms
I
of
love
like
that.
the human voice, like what the human voice is.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
scientifically speaking, it is in the range of the human voice.
It is in the range.
But yeah, I love that. Like, if the violin is who we want to be, the cello is who we are. Like,
lovely.
Perfect.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else I can ask you that's fun. Like, so when you're composing for other people, when you're making music for other people because you've been commissioned to do so, are you trying hard to give them what they're asking for, or are you trying to sneak little bits and pieces of yourself into it? Because the piece that you played at the top, it definitely felt like it had a lot of like fiddle elements in it. Really great, beautiful like double stops and like harmonized melodies on the instrument. And I guess the shaker melodies perhaps lends itself to that, right? Because it's kind of like a folk song in so many ways, right? But still, like I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a signature. I thought it might have been an example of your voice, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up listening. There's a lot of country music on in my house, and so somehow, if like on Long Island in New York, I didn't grow up in the South.
Wow.
So yeah. I think that like folk music and Americana in general is just something that I just know those sounds. So going to fiddle camps, it all just kind of made sense. And yeah, if people are asking me to write music, it's going to be this kind of pseudo contemporary classical folky kind of thing. I love the music of like when I was like feeling like maybe I could be a classical cellist, like it was always in the contemporary music realm. And like my favorite thing I ever played was this piece by I don't know if I'm going to pronounce her name correctly, but Kaya Sarayaho. She's this amazing composer who deals in like all of these like harmonics that are in position, and so the instrument's just ringing, and and just like very vivid. Like she has this piece called Sept Papillon, so 7 butterflies, and it's just this gorgeous like painting of like there's all these like butterfly sounds, and yeah, I mean I always liked just very evocative contemporary music, and like crunchy, like I have some crunches in there.
I like your chopping, by the way, too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So
I don't chop, but yeah.
I don't do a lot of the things you do, so.
I think it's becoming almost like contemporary canon chopping, but yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely.
It is getting there.
It's cool to see actually how many people do it, whereas like I think like 5 years ago that might not have been the case, but yeah. So yeah, that is the kind of realm I write in mostly, but yeah, I wanted to ask you. So you said that most of your music, like a lot of it is improvised, but like, do you have like a way you start writing something new? Does it come from a seed of a groove or something, or do you ever sit down and you're like, I need to write this emotion that I'm feeling? Like sometimes
it's let me start with the emotion first. I don't know. I do a lot of things that I think most people would consider like bad form, right? So like the ratio of my playing is like 80% improvisation, 20% practice. It's perhaps not that exaggerated, but for me, all of my songwriting comes out of playing, and I don't mean like playing the instrument. I mean like just like messing around. So like those improvisations that you see me do online, like almost always are, it's like cutting on a faucet. And this is a really horrible analogy, but it's like most of the water that comes out of the faucet is like not usable. It's like when you have one of those boil advisories and they tell you to like run your faucet for like an hour. But then after you get all the like non-usable water out, there's usually like some crystal clear, beautiful water that just kind of comes all of a sudden out of it. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, I love that. That's the thing. And so I usually either remember it and start playing it again and looping it, or I record it on my phone and I come back to it later. But that's how I would say 75% of what I've written has come about, like me just playing. Like an example, this is a song, I don't know if I'll play another song. I guess we've been going a lot longer than 30 minutes. I hope you still have watchers or listeners. But I was at a quartet gig at the Swan House here in Atlanta with this cool quartet called Co-Resonance and some great players in it who are giggers, right? So like they have professional audio, they like pickups, they can play contemporary stuff, and there's a bit of a skill set and a certain equipment list that goes along with that, right? So it's always great to get together with them because we would have a lot of fun playing and improvising. There's this one song I wrote for my wife that I was telling you about. I'd play that, and then they would start improvising over top of it. It was great. It was beautiful, right? But I was at a gig. We were there improvising, just playing, and then all of a sudden we stopped, and I was that kid in orchestra. I'm sure you know him, who like the conductor like taps on the stand and tells everyone to be quiet, and they're talking, and I'm like listening, but I'm like,
yeah, I was that kid too.
I was completely that kid, right? Just moving all around, having no idea what I'm doing, and I stumbled onto this. I was like, oh, what is that? That's like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And so I was at the gig. I took out my phone. I literally recorded. I had them play to it a little bit just so I could see how well it was, like you could improvise to it. And I took it home and I turned it into a song. And it is perhaps my most it's most popular song, but it's also, I would say, my most evocative song. I actually might play that for you right now. There's a story to it. Very frequently, like the music and the emotions the emotion comes out of the music because the music is play, so I don't really know where I'm going with that. And then there's a story that comes out of the music and the emotion. I'm not even really sure what the emotion is for this song, Liminal, but I heard it and it immediately reminded me of my childhood. I haven't really broken it down like this for most people because I'm usually not talking to musicians, but there's like this, which is very like funky, jazz, bassy. And then there's this like layered voice thing that has this kind of like choral feel to it. And then the improvisation is like not a jazz improvisation. I'm just not using jazz scales. I don't really typically do when I improvise. But there's almost something strangely classical in the improvisational, right? So it's like all these things kind of thrust together for me. And in so many ways, the song sits in the middle of those genres. And it reminded me of the fact that I grew up in the middle of spaces, right? Like I grew up in a Black middle class neighborhood in Washington, D.C., but went to prep schools in the suburbs. Or I played music, but I also played sports, right? And so neither of those worlds really understood each other. Or I liked classical music, but like you, I liked a lot of contemporary music. I liked go-go, which is like very specific to D.C. And I liked Public Enemy, and Prince it still is pretty much my like, he's the, there's Prince and then there's the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
So that idea of being in the middle of things really resonated with me, and this song really seemed very much in the middle of things. And I went to grad school actually for American Studies, which was basically like critical studies. And one of the words that kind of popped out because it's a really important idea in that tradition, or in that academic tradition, is the idea of liminality, right? Being in between spaces. I was like, this song is so liminal, so that became the name, and the name resonates with my life, and my life resonates with the song, and it all came up from play. It all came up from, not me sitting down, hey, I want to write this thoughtful articulation of my being in the middle of things when I was a child. It just came out of me messing around. So here's Liminal.
gorgeous.
So that is liminal.
Yes, so great. And I love the volume pedal and being able to fade it out. I think that is.
Yeah.
And then you did this on the other tune too, where you kept going. I just thought that was awesome, beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Loved it. Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The volume pedal gives it a little drama, like a little you know, a little bit of cool.
Well, I think maybe we should wrap it up, but not because I'm not having a great time, because like I'm ready for the pandemic to end and drive down to Atlanta and hang out with you in like real
Look
life.
at that. Do you know Ben Soleil? Soleil?
Yeah, I don't know him. I met him a couple times, and I think he just followed me on Instagram, so I think he knows who I am.
Yeah. I think Ben is really cool. Like Ben and you, and you're in Nashville, right?
Yes.
You know Cremain?
I do know Cremain, yes.
Yeah.
So great.
These are some like badass cellists, man. I like that everyone's doing kind of their own thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
take
it's cool.
that, New York. Sorry, New York. Like, look at us down in the South, like making cool music.
You know, OutKast got their first award at the hip hop. I guess I can't remember what the show was, but they got their first award, and there was this big East-West beef going on. Like I think it was shortly either before Biggie or Tupac. There were some deaths that were either happening or had happened, and there was this tension. But the South won. OutKast got on stage, and they said, "The South got something to say." And it was such a big moment for hip hop, and maybe the moment of the South's and particularly Atlanta's ascension with regard to hip hop. And I think in some ways, you know, there's so many opportunities for invention in spaces where the city characters haven't already been developed. Right, you know, like New York is New York for everything that New York is, and LA is LA for everything that LA is, and Chicago is Chicago for everything that Chicago is, but Atlanta is becoming. The South is becoming. Nashville, I guess, is Nashville, right? But, you know, I played with a woman who lived in Nashville for a while. Did you ever know Callahan?
No.
She was
lived there for a few years.
Only for a few years. So she hasn't been there for now a few years. She is a British-born folk singer, pop folk singer. And I was just so amazed when I came to Nashville that like it's not just the home of like country music. Everything is being recorded in Nashville. Like everybody is playing a little bit of everything in Nashville just because, you know, so much music comes through there. So I just think Nashville is, you know, also blazing the trail, you know?
Yeah, and in terms of classical music or whatever you want, like string music that is like like there's just a lot of really cool things happening with like the arts community that I think like, well, I would love for it to be like kind of like given a spotlight so that people know what's happening, but there's like really, you know, when there's not a pandemic, like really beautiful like so far type house concerts happening with like new music interspersed with songwriters and you know, like 50 young people crammed into a living room watching like a string octet play. It's just like really nice stuff is happening there. But and I've not spent enough time in Atlanta, so I do love your zoo though. I've been there.
Come on down.
I'm a fan of zoos, but I'm so excited that we got to do this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And, thank you so much for having me.
And plug something. What would you like to plug?
What is there to plug? Right now, the only things to plug are in my dreams right now. There's some really big things that are happening. But I mean, you can always follow me at OkCello on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook at OkCello, on Twitter at OkCello1. There's somebody that I need to talk to apparently, who has the OkCello Twitter. But you know, I may have a gig coming up in May down here at a venue. I've been lucky enough to be able to do a couple of gigs during the pandemic in socially distant ways. So I consider that a real blessing. But so much of what I'm doing now is online, or I've been doing a lot of like either performances for specific communities online or commissioned work for like writing music for people and stuff. So that's kind of what's happening while we're waiting for the world to kind of open up again. But I've got all these toys, right? I don't even know if this is, oh, it survived. I got all these, I didn't even really use all these different toys, right? But, you know, I'm dying to like, and I've got these lights behind me. I'm dying to like do an actual show or like, and like, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so many
you know, like that, you know, that kind of thing. So maybe just pay attention to like what's happening on the, on my Instagram, because I'm going to be probably promoting and advertising some of those things soon.
That's so great. Well, I will be at that show because I'm your #1 fan now. I don't know if you know it.
Thank you, Kaitlyn. I appreciate it. And I am loving your work, and I just can't wait to hear more of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, the song a day stuff is going really well.
Oh yeah. I've missed a lot of days, but life gets in the way, so it doesn't matter. I'll just pick it back up. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to actually start releasing these tunes I've been putting out on streaming platforms. So we'll see how that goes. I've never like put my own music out on those things. So
you know, it makes a difference. I guess the last thing I'll say, that I hope it isn't like blasphemous or it doesn't, you know. The last thing I'll say is that, you know, the tradition that we're raised in, that we were trained in, really is a tradition of people who had some really amazingly interesting things to say musically, right? And it's because of the fact that they had things to say musically that there's still music to play, right? And so having backed up singer-songwriters for pretty much the majority of my career, I really have a healthy respect for kind of finding your voice and putting it out there and sharing it with people. And I think it just really changes your relationship to your instrument, to music, and specifically to your audience. It really did for me 6 years ago when I started really putting my own music out. So certainly I'd been playing with people, I'd been, you know, traveling around and felt like I was part of a scene and felt like I was artistic and complimenting people's work. But the moment that you start putting your own work out, I think everything really changes, and the way that people see you changes. And you're creating like new emotions and new ideas and new combinations. And I just, especially for our instrument, I don't think there's remotely enough of that. So super excited about you continuing to do that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I feel like in the last few months, I went from like being pretty in the depths, also COVID, but in the depths of like, what am I even doing with this instrument? And now I'm just like, I have a purpose, and it's to write these weird instrumental cello music things that don't have words. I mean, I was just so like, I used to try to write songs because, and I still do, but like songs come hard to me, words come hard to me, notes don't come hard to me. Yeah. Well, we're gonna say goodbye to the stream. You hang out because I'll just like say goodbye to you. I will. But okay. We will wave goodbye to everyone, and this will be available to like rewatch, and I'm gonna post some clips so everyone who missed it will be able to like see some of it. But yeah, so goodbye everyone watching. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, go follow OkCello on everything.
Thanks, yeah.
Here we go. Okay.